Apple's Siri assistant is about to get a big boost from Google's AI. But the tech giant isn't the only one poised to benefit from the tie up. It could also have huge implications for forward thinking retailers. Here's why. I'm Diana Gooverts, and this is The Five Nine. Retailers were some of the first enterprises to deploy machine learning and deterministic modeling for their operations. Now they're looking to deploy Gen AI at scale. And here on the Five Nine, we normally bring you perspectives from the people making telecom, cloud, and AI tech. But today, we wanted to flip the script and talk to someone who has spent the past several years on the other side of the equation. Someone who has been working with the folks trying to put AI into action on the ground in retail. Adam Brotman has a long history with retail. He notably did a nearly 8 year stint as the chief digital officer at Starbucks and also held C suite positions at J. Crew and Brightloom. Even all the way back in the mid 90s, he was co founder and CEO of Play Network, a company which provided in store music and entertainment services. So suffice to say, he knows a thing or two about retail. And over the past 4.5 years at Forum3, he's spent his time advising retail giants on how to modernize their digital strategy and most recently apply AI in day to day operations. So, Adam, let's set the scene. How long have retailers been toying with AI and what's different now?
Let's remind ourselves and ground ourselves as retailers, because I consider myself a retailer, like that this Gen AI is very different than the prior instances that we all called AI, including myself, but which were really more deterministic. They were really more predictive model based and machine. They involved machine learning. They involved algorithms, which the new Gen AI does as well. The difference is these new transformer model based, primarily LLMs and all of the systems around these LLMs that you have now, and not just LLMs. I mean, you have transformer based models that can produce video and images and
Yeah,
combined
the
with LLMs.
multimodal stuff.
Yeah, and that is groundbreaking and much more transformative, in my opinion, than the AI we had been dealing with. And it's important to start and say that. Like, I mean, I may be accused of being hyperbolic, but I promise you, I've been studying this for the last couple of years and spending my whole career in digital, and this is different. And the reason it's different is because of the general purpose nature and capability of these systems. Like, they are much more like having a team of experts and people than your prior AI. Your prior AI was like, you had to point it at something specifically. You had to load it with just certain types of data. It either worked or it didn't. That's not how this AI is super capable at doing everything that the prior AI could do. And it can also, because it can reason and think and use tools like web search and write code and create images and videos, all of a sudden, it becomes much more surface area that as a retailer that you can deploy it. So let's talk about your Apple question as an example. So the consumer behavior is going to change drastically because of AI. It already is. I mean, the fact that we already have 1 billion weekly users of AI. So 1 billion weekly users is definitely active. Not all of them are super proficient. Most of them, in fact, are using a free version. They're not aware of like complicated things you can do with it. But the one thing that anybody can do with free AI is get like healthcare information or get shopping advice. And that is, so if you're a retailer, you're like, whoa, I need to be paying attention to like, are people going to be finding my product in the same way? Are they going to be thinking about my brand in the same way? So search is going to change. It's going to become much more AI driven. And the point of purchase can become moved from you on a website or in a store to you talking to AI and asking AI agentically to go buy for you, go search and buy for you. And that's coming. It's happening. It's going to be, and so you're going to have agents on your site, not humans. You're going to have, as a retailer, you're going to have consumers that are going to be kind of one step removed. And so you got to be thinking about like, how do I show up well? And how do I make sure that my first party sites like my websites, my app, etc., I got to make sure that they're AI enabled in a way that fits with the new consumer behavior. So Apple, in the Apple Google deal around Apple Intelligence and what that's going to mean, I do imagine is going to be a tectonic shift for retail on some level, because it's going to massively accelerate what is already happening with consumer behavior. And then you as a retailer are going to have to adapt to that, because you're like, we're talking about robots, intelligent robots called an agent on your computer in the internet that are going to like do stuff on behalf of consumers. And that's so different than a world we were living in, 2 years ago.
I'm curious because I'm not sure if you've seen it, but in our circles there was this MIT study that went around saying all these AI pilots are failing. Do you think on-device AI or some other factor like that will change the ROI equation? Right? Like, will it make it easier to get ROI from AI that's being deployed for retailers?
Okay, that MIT study, the study itself, which I read every word of, was okay. The methodology wasn't great. They were not making the claim, and the point, if you read the study, that 95% of pilots fail and don't have ROI. That, to be honest, they were trying to make a bigger point, which I actually want to make with your audience, which is that they were saying, oh, it's if you try to just like outsource a pilot to some wrapper app. The examples they were giving were not actually like your typical pilots as you and I would think about it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get smart about how I'm going to incorporate and apply AI to my supply chain, my merchandising, my customer experiences, my marketing. The examples they were giving were more like where somebody just tried to use some wrapper app, meaning some like third party app, and if it didn't work as well as the primary system would have worked, they would stop doing it. And they being the authors of the MIT study, were making the point in the article to say, they kind of buried the lead. They're like, well, if you really want to know the secret to getting ROI, this is the MIT author saying this, you got to learn how to like use Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini every day and start incorporating it into augmenting your decision making and your analysis, as well as perhaps incorporating it into customer experiences. So I don't buy the whole 95% of pilots are failing and they're not getting ROI. I actually think that if you know how to use AI, if you're smart about augmenting your everyday decision-making analysis and work with AI, which you should be doing, and if you're not, you're missing out. The ROI is like off the charts. It's like asking about the ROI of electricity or your computer, because like you're using it every day, and someone would be like, "What's your ROI on your computer?" And you'd say, well, it's pretty damn good. I spent like $1,000 on it, and like I use it every day, and like I can't even imagine living without it, and it's making me a little bit better every day. And it's not costing me very much, right? So that people don't realize that in the ROI equation, and I know I'm going on a little bit of a soapbox here, but like it's the I. Aaron, I want to give credit to Aaron Levy from Box. He said, he had a great blog post the other day where he was like, it's the I in the ROI that people are misunderstanding. Like it's not a huge investment. Like it's actually pretty inexpensive. Like using a frontier model in your everyday work to make better decisions faster as a retail leader is relatively inexpensive. It's maybe $20 a month or $25 a month. And it's just an investment of your time to like learn how to use it. It's if you start thinking of it like traditional technology implementation, and you think about some pilot project that you have to spend a bunch of money and time on, like that's a tech transformation mindset. That's not what this AI is all about. This AI is all about your work and your thinking and augmenting what you do. And the transformation is more human workflow transformation. So I would say that that's the mindset you need to have when it comes to this technology, and don't get distracted by people that are trying to like pop the bubble or like say that ROI, the MIT study, and be more focused on the fact that this technology, most people are underutilizing how incredible it is to do things like personalization, like customer segmentation, labor scheduling. If you're a retailer, it's incredible what you can do with labor scheduling, supply chain analysis, pricing analysis, real estate optimization. I mean, I can go on and on and on. As a retailer, there's all these things that you do, and this technology, this virtually free technology, exists for you to be augmenting and making better decisions faster. And if you're smart about that, you can also start to think about how it's going to affect your customer experiences. I mentioned personalization, but that's how I would think about this technology, as opposed to these big bang moments of like, oh, if Apple and Google get together and put real good state-of-the-art frontier AI into Siri, because that's really the play for Apple with this deal. That is going to be game-changing. It is going to change how people think about AI. You're going to have the everyday consumer using it more. They're going to be discovering more with it. They're going to be shopping more with it. And that'll change a lot. But fine, that's going to happen. You got to be aware of it. You as a retailer, you can pay attention to that. But for now, start by using it yourself and how you actually do your job.
I'm glad you mentioned how AI will impact customer experiences. Because one thing I've been thinking a lot about, our core audience is comprised of telecom and tech professionals. And one of the ways that telecoms have initially been implementing Gen AI is for customer service. They say the goal is to cut costs. They're also going to improve the customer experience. And like I'm not just a journalist, I'm also a consumer who has phone and internet service. And I will tell you that interacting with some of these wonderful new tools can feel really frustrating. It can feel sometimes dehumanizing when you're screaming into the phone representative, because if I could have solved it with a chatbot, I would not have called. So, my question for you is, what is the risk for retailers or any other enterprise of alienating customers or even outright driving them away with bad AI or badly implemented AI?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a big risk. I mean, if you don't want to just do this as a bolt-on strategy just to check the box to do it. So if it turns out that there's an area of customer support or customer engagement that you feel is not great right now, but if you could have a empathetic, smart, humanoid sounding either voice or text bot help improve the customer experience, you should experiment with that. I would definitely not just jump in head first and just assume that it's going to be better. But many times, the capability of today's AI systems, I'm talking about advanced voice mode, I'm talking about with reasoning and thinking, they're so much better than what you're offering your customers today. So don't compare it to like what the humans are doing in your world to engage with customers, or just, you have to basically compare it to like, well, wow, like these systems are really capable. If I can get faster, better customer support, if I can make better recommendations to my customers in a non-voice way, but in some kind of text way or some kind of recommendation way, then I should experiment with that. And where it works, I'm going to win and the customer's going to win. When it doesn't, I'm going to pull back. But don't just assume that. And it's not one size fits all. Like my answer to your question is like, I would look for areas where you can improve. This technology will allow you to improve more than you think. If you think it's some crazy bad like voice AI thing that you're experiencing today, that's probably not using the right system. Like really good modern systems today, you can almost, it's scary, but you can almost not tell that they're not a human. They actually can listen to you and understand you and like think for a second. So for that reason, I would get yourself, my two pieces of advice to a retailer, and to answer your question, is get smart about the most recent capabilities of these AI systems. They're probably better than you think. Secondly, find areas where you can improve your customer experience using these systems and experiment with it. Don't jump in head first. And I think that's the approach I would take.
I also wanted to follow up on something you kind of mentioned in passing earlier about the bubble. We can't get through an AI conversation without addressing that uh, massive looming question. So I am curious. I know one of the things that you've done at Forum3, it was with Starbucks after you had left the company. I think you advised them on Odyssey, which was their NFT based loyalty program. That was back in, I think, 2022. And I know that in retrospect, we know NFTs were kind of a short lived, bubbly version of a technology. Um, so I wanted to ask, comparing your experience from then to now, do you feel like AI is similarly like a bubbly technology, or do you think it's completely different from what you experienced when you were looking at NFTs?
I think it's apples and oranges, and I think it's very different. First of all, I think that um, blockchain-based solutions went there, whether they be NFTs or cryptocurrencies or other solutions, they they suffered from two things that I do believe it's right to say, oh, they were sort of bubbly. Like they suffered from two things that at the time we were going through it, I wasn't sure, I wasn't aware that this was going to happen. One of which is that they were there was so much speculations and scams and gambling happening around that whole space, not just NFTs, but crypto in general. I mean, culminating in the collapse of FTX, that it just washed over the entire space. Secondly, the user interface of crypto was always super hard. So for the non-scammy, non-speculative uses like blockchain-based loyalty and using blockchain to help with identity, which is, there's all these great use cases for blockchain. I still think that loyalty is kind of one of them. However, the user interface of crypto is really hard. You had to like effectively like become like a super techno nerd to actually use the stuff. And while that it started to get dealt with a little bit, it never really got dealt with. Compared to AI, AI, first of all, intelligence as a service, like that, which is Gen AI, is and has a billion, weekly users already, is going to cure diseases and is going to like radically change the economy for good and for bad. It is. I'm not saying it's not all for good, but it is massively disruptive. It is incredibly easy to use. Unlike crypto, you just speak to it or type to it in natural language, and you don't need to know anything. It is your expert. So it is very different. It's much more powerful. It's much more usable.
And then I wanted to kind of round out our conversation with an open ended question for you. So, keeping in mind that our audience is kind of tech and telecom professionals, I mean, what's one thing you think more people need to be thinking about or talking about when it comes to applying AI in the real world?
The biggest thing that people need to be doing with AI is they need to be using it, trying it. It's moving so fast and it's so capable. Its capabilities are improving so fast that many people today, when they think about AI, they're actually thinking about kind of where AI was 6 months ago, a year ago. And believe it or not, it's progressed remarkably in a year. And a year ago, it was like the biggest topic. But it's actually progressed a lot. These things called reasoning models and thinking models have been game changing. They only have been around for less than a year, really, less than a year. And the ability for these systems to basically be somewhat agentic and go and solve things on their own and come back, like really being able to like parse apart a spreadsheet and give you great analysis and great segmentation, the ability for you to like load in dozens of transcripts and documents and other things like that, and be able to sort of create your own chatbot on the fly very easily so that you can have your own expert by your side. Besides just the raw chatbot, you can actually supplement it and almost like customize it for yourself. People need to be realizing that that's, even though there's like 1% of AI folks that are doing that, the everyday person today, if you're not trying to do that and play with it, you're gonna get caught flat-footed because you're gonna be like, well, I didn't realize I could use AI for this or for that. Like, I wish someone had told me. So my biggest advice is, I'm telling you, it's not a cure-all for everything. And there's lots of downsides. It can still make mistakes. You got to know what you're doing. But the best way to learn it is to start using it. And the number one sort of cheat code I'll tell people is make sure that when you're using ChatGPT, for example, that you're using what's called the thinking model. Don't just use the auto model. Like, you really want to play with these reasoning or thinking models. It's built into Gemini. It's built into Claude now. But don't just think, well, I've tried it 3 or 4 months ago. It's kind of nice for writing a blog post or maybe helping me to summarize an email, when it can actually do thinking and reasoning, and people have to experience it to learn it. And that's how they should be thinking about it, is like, wow, Adam said this stuff is more capable. I should be sort of using it multiple times a day. I'm just going to get after it.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing the pace at which AI is moving, but that's a good note to leave it on. So we'll end there, but thank you, Adam, so much for your time, and to our listeners or viewers, wherever you are listening or watching, make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.